I found a second phone in my wife's gym bag while searching for my headphones. There were 847 messages to her personal trainer, Jake. I read exactly 3 before I felt sick, then went through all 847 before calling my lawyer. She came home to divorce papers waiting on the kitchen counter. I am Daniel, 38 years old, and I work as a regional operations manager for a logistics company in Phoenix. My schedule is structured and predictable. Early mornings, long hours, spreadsheets, performance calls, and home by 6 most nights unless something is on fire at a warehouse. I am not impulsive. I plan, I document, I verify. My wife is Melissa, 35. We have been married for 9 years, together for 11. We own a house in the suburbs, split the mortgage, no kids. She works in medical billing and recently got very serious about fitness. About 8 months ago she hired a personal trainer named Jake. From what she told me, he was 29 and building his brand. She trained with him 3 times a week. I am posting here because I need perspective, even though I have already taken action. Last Tuesday I got home early. One of my conference calls was canceled, and I figured I would surprise her with takeout from the Thai place she likes. She was still at work. I went upstairs to change and couldn't find my wireless headphones. I used them for late-night reports and gym sessions. I remember tossing them into her gym bag on Sunday when we cleaned out the car after a hike. Her bag was on the laundry room bench. I unzipped the main compartment and didn't see the headphones. There was a smaller inner pocket I had never noticed before. I assumed maybe she had reorganized things. Inside that pocket was a phone. Not an old cracked screen phone. Not something dead and forgotten. It was charged. Powered on. Face down. No case. We have never had separate phones beyond our regular ones. No secret devices. No weird tech habits. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds just looking at it, trying to construct a reasonable explanation. Work backup. Maybe she was selling it for someone. Maybe he was a friend's. Then the screen lit up. A notification banner slid across the top. Jake with a heart emoji next to his name. Miss you already. My stomach dropped in a way that felt physical, like missing a step in the dark. I unlocked it because there was no passcode. That detail alone told me more than anything else. If it were harmless, it would not need to be hidden. If it were professional, it would not need to be secret. There were 847 messages in that thread. 847. I opened the conversation and read exactly 3 before I had to sit down. The first was from him talking about how he could still feel her nails in his back. The second was from her telling him she loved when he got possessive. The third was a selfie of her in our guest bathroom mirror wearing the red sports bra I bought her for Christmas. There was enough to make me feel sick, but I did not stop. If this was going to blow up my life, I needed the full picture. I sat at the kitchen table with that second phone in my hands and read every single message. It took about 40 minutes. I did not skim. I did not jump a route. I started at the top and worked my way down because I needed a timeline, not just a highlight reel of the trail. If I was going to make a decision that ended a 9-year marriage, I was not doing it based on 3 screenshots and a spike of adrenaline. The thread started 6 months ago. At first it looked professional. Scheduling sessions. Adjusting times. Payment confirmations. Then a tone shifted gradually. A joke about how hard she pushed herself during a workout. And telling her she was his most dedicated client. Her telling him he was her favorite part of the week. By month 2, it was private. And side jokes. Comments about how I did not understand her fitness goals. Complaints about how I was too structured and predictable. He fed that narrative. Told her she deserved someone who matched her energy. Someone who appreciated her body the way he did. By month 3, it was physical. The first time happened on a Friday afternoon in his studio. She told him she was staying late at work. I remember that day clearly because I had offered to cook dinner, and she texted me that she was stuck reconciling claims. She even sent a picture of her computer screen as proof. That picture was in the thread too. She had sent it to him first with the caption cover story. There were details. Explicit ones. Where they met. How they avoided cameras. When they used his car instead of hers. He knew my work schedule. She gave it to him. Mondays and Wednesdays were safest because I had standing regional calls. It was not just sex. That is what hit harder. They talked about the future in vague, delusional ways. Him saying he wanted her full time. Her saying she felt alive with him. She complained about we being boring. Predictable. Unstable. There were messages sent from our house. From our bed. Time stamps lining up with nights. She rolled away from me saying she was tired. Around message 600 something, she told him she loved him. He replied I love you too. I did not cry. I did not punch anything. I felt cold. That is the best word for it. Like someone had flipped a breaker inside my chest. When I finished reading, I checked the rest of the phone. No other threats like that. Just him. That made it worse. This was not random chaos. It was targeted, focused, intentional. I took screenshots of the entire thread and emailed them to myself. Then I powered the phone off and put it back exactly where I found it. At that point I had two options. Confront her immediately and listen to whatever version of damage control she could assemble. Or move quietly and deliberately. I chose quiet. By 4:30 p.m., I was in my car outside the office of a divorce attorney a colleague had used last year. I did not tell anyone why I was there. I just said I needed to understand my options. And after an hour in that office, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The attorney's name was Harris. Mid-50s, calm, no nonsense. He asked for a summary, and I gave him one without emotion. Found a second phone, 847 messages. Ongoing affair with personal trainer. Explicit content. Shared assets. No kids. He did not look surprised. He asked practical questions instead. Is the house jointly owned? Yes. Both names on the mortgage. Joint checking and savings. Yes. Any prenuptial agreement? No. I told him I had screenshots of everything. He nodded and said good. In our state, infidelity does not dramatically change asset division, but documentation matters for leverage. He explained what separation would look like. Temporary orders. Who stays in the house. How accounts are handled. How quickly we could file. He asked the question I had been circling in my own head. Are you sure? I did not hesitate. I told him I had read every message. There was no misunderstanding. No one-time mistake. This was a sustained relationship. She had given this guy my work schedule so they could plan around me. That detail alone erased any instinct to negotiate. He drafted the initial paperwork that afternoon. I paid the retainer on the spot. Driving home, I felt strangely steady. Not calm in a peaceful sense. Calm in a decisive sense. Like when a project fails an audit and you stop debating whether it might pass and just initiate the shutdown procedure. Melissa texted me around 5. Running a little late. Jake pressed me hard today LOL. I stared at that message longer than I should have. The casualness of it. The layered lie inside a joke. I replied sounds good. I picked up dinner. When I got home, I placed the takeout containers on the counter like any normal Tuesday. I set the divorce papers in a neat stack on the kitchen island. Not hidden, not dramatic, just centered. I did not leave a note. I wanted her to see in herself. She walked in at 6:18 p.m., gym bag over her shoulder, ponytail tight, that same red sports bra under a zip hoodie. She kissed me on the cheek like she always did. I felt a day was. Then she saw the envelope. Her body went still. Completely still. But she had stepped onto ice. What is that? She asked. I told her to open it. She read the first page, standing there in the kitchen. I watched her face change in stages. Confusion. Recognition. Then panic. This isn't funny, she said. I told her I agreed. She asked what this was about. I set her gym bag. That was the exact moment she knew I knew. Her eyes flicked toward the laundry room, without her meaning to. Tiny movement. Involuntary. And then the performance started. The first thing she did was laugh. Not because it was funny. Because she needed time. You went through my stuff? She said. That's insane. That's such a violation. I did not raise my voice. I told her I was looking for my headphones. I found a second phone instead. Her face shifted again. Defensive to indignant. Is not what you think. That sentence is universal. I let it sit in the air. I told her I read all 847 messages. That number landed. You could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. There was no minimizing that. No claiming it was just flirting. No pretending it was one bad night. She switched strategies. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I was going to end it. I asked when. Soon, she said. I just needed time. I asked how much time. Another 6 months. Another year. After he helped her feel alive enough. She started crying then. Real tears. But even through it, she was still managing optics. She said she felt disconnected from me. That I had become distant. That Jake made her feel seen. I asked her if being seen required using our guest bathroom to send him photos. That shut her up for a second. She tried to pivot again. Said it was just physical at first. That she never meant to fall in love. I told her I read the I love you messages. I read the parts where she complained about me being too stable. Too boring. Too predictable. She flinched at predictable. That one always bothered her. Then she did something that surprised me. She got angry. You're acting like you're perfect, she snapped. You're not easy to live with. Everything is a schedule. Everything is a plan. I needed something spontaneous. I told her spontaneity does not require a secret phone. There was when she finally understood this was not a fight she could talk her way out of. I was not yelling. I was not bargaining. I was not asking if we could fix it. I told her I had already spoken to an attorney, that the paperwork was filed, that she would be served formally within a few days. Her crying stopped immediately. You already filed? Yes. She asked if I was really going to throw away 9 years over a mistake. I corrected her. It was not a mistake. It was a sustained second relationship. Silence again. Then she asked the question I expected. How much do you know? I told her enough to know that this conversation was over. And then I asked her one thing. Are you married? When I asked if Jake knew she was married, she hesitated for half a second too long. He knows we've been having issues, she said. That was not what I asked. I repeated the question. Does he know you are married? She looked down at the counter instead of at me. I told him we were basically separated. We were not basically separated. We had dinner together 3 nights a week. We hosted her parents for Thanksgiving. We refinanced the house together in March. There was nothing remotely separated about our life. So on top of everything else, she had rewritten our marriage for him. I nodded once. That detail mattered. She started pacing. Said she was confused. That she had been feeling lost for months. That the gym was supposed to be an outlet, and it just got complicated. I asked her if she ever planned to tell me. Not if I had not found the phone. If I had just continued being predictable and boring. She said she did not know. There was the most honest thing she said all night. Then she tried the last angle available. Therapy. We can fix this. It meant nothing compared to what we have. 9 years does not disappear. I told her 9 years did not disappear. They ended. I explained something very simply. If I had found 3 messages, I might have confronted her and demanded transparency. If it had been one stroke mistake, maybe there would have been a conversation about repair. But 847 messages. Coordinated schedules. A second device. That is infrastructure. That is not confusion. That is intention. She said she would quit the gym. Lock him. Change her number. I told her she could do whatever she wanted. It just would not be as my wife. Then I made a decision I had not planned to make that quickly. I told her to pack a bag. She blinked at me like she misheard. I need to leave tonight. Her face shifted from pleading to disbelief. This is my house too. Yes, it is. And I am not staying under the same roof with someone actively carrying on a second relationship. You can call your sister. The parents. Or Jake. But you are not sleeping here. She said I could not just throw her out. I told her I was not changing the locks, and I was not denying her access to her belongings. I was telling her that for tonight, she needed to remove herself from this space. We would let the attorneys sort out formal living arrangements within the week. She tried to argue legality. I told her I had already spoken to counsel, and that temporary separation inside the same home was not something I was interested in. If she refused to leave voluntarily, I would involve law enforcement to document the situation and keep it civil. Not dramatic. Just documented. That landed. She stared at me for a long time, like she was waiting for me to soften. I did not. Finally she went upstairs. I heard drawers opening. Suitcase wheels scraping across the floor. 20 minutes later, she came down with a carry-on and her purse. Gym bag in her hand. She paused at the door. You're really choosing pride over us. I told her this was not pride. It was standards. She left without slamming the door. The house was quiet in a way it had not been in years. And for the first time since I found that second phone, I could breathe without feeling like I was swallowing glass. I did not sleep much that night, but I did not spiral either. Around midnight my phone started lighting up. First from her, then from her sister, then from her mother. I did not answer any of them. I let everything go to voicemail. I wanted a clean record of what was said. At 12:17 a.m., Melissa finally texted instead of calling. You're overreacting. We can fix this. At 12:24 a.m., Jake says he will back off. He didn't know it was like this. At 12:31 a.m., please don't do this. I did not respond. At 1:02 a.m., her sister sent a message that shifted the tone. What did you do to make her feel like she needed someone else? That one I screenshot and forwarded to my attorney in the morning. By 7:30 a.m., I was in his office again. I handed him the screenshots from the second phone and the overnight messages. He nodded and said the faster we formalize temporary occupancy and financial boundaries, the better. We drafted a notice requesting exclusive use of the home during proceedings based on documented infidelity and emotional distress. Not dramatic language, just structured facts. He also advised me to move half of our joint liquid funds into a separate account in my name only, not to hide assets, but to prevent unilateral withdrawals. So I did. I transferred exactly half of our checking and savings into a new account and documented the balance before and after. I emailed her a neutral message informing her of the move and stating that all future shared expenses would be tracked pending court guidance. She called immediately. "You trying to bankrupt me now?" "No. I am preserving stability. There is a difference." She was staying at her sister's apartment. I could hear her in the background asking what I was saying. Melissa told me I was humiliating her, that her family now knew everything. I told her that was a consequence of bringing a third person into our marriage, not of me responding to it. Then she shifted again. "Jed feels terrible." That sentence confirmed something important. She had already told him. I asked her directly, "Are you with him right now?" Silence. Then she said no, but she might go see him later to talk. To talk. Less than 12 hours after being served divorce papers, she was considering going to him for comfort. That removed any residual doubt that maybe this had been an emotional lapse. I told her very calmly that any further contact with him would be noted in the proceedings. Not as revenge, as pattern. She said I was threatening her. I said I was informing her. We hung up without resolution. By that afternoon, she had posted a vague quote on social media about choosing happiness and breaking free from control. Friends started texting me asking what was going on. I did not defend myself publicly. I just sent one message to the one person whose opinion actually mattered in this situation. Jake. And I kept it very short. I got Jake's number from the second phone. I did not call. I texted. "This is Daniel, Melissa's husband. I found the second phone. Divorce papers are filed. Do not contact me again." That was it. No insults. No threats. No dramatic paragraphs. He responded within 3 minutes. "She told me you were separated." I expected that. I replied with one sentence. "We refinanced our house together in March." There was a long pause after that. Then he said he did not know the full situation and that he never would have gotten involved if he had known. That may or may not be true. It does not matter. I told him I had documentation of the entire thread. 847 messages. I told him any attempt to spend this publicly or privately would be met with the full record. Again, not a threat, just information. He replied that he did not want drama and that he would stick back. I told him stepping back now was not a favor. It was late. There was the end of the exchange. About an hour later Melissa called again. This time she was furious. "Why are you contacting him?" "Because he was involved in my marriage." "You had no right." I laughed at that one. Not loudly, just enough for her to hear it. She accused me of trying to sabotage our happiness. Said that even if our marriage was over, I did not need to ruin what she had with him. That was the moment the reality fully set in. She was not fighting for us anymore. She was negotiating for him. I told her something very simple. "You had a choice months ago. You chose him. I am just finalizing a paperwork." She said I was cold. That I had turned into someone she did not recognize. I told her I recognized myself just fine. Then she played her last card. She said if I pushed this through, she would make the divorce ugly. She would claim emotional neglect. She would say I controlled finances. That I forced her out of the house. I had been expecting that. I reminded her that I had offered her temporary arrangements through counsel and that she left voluntarily. I reminded her that I had documentation of her second phone, the explicit messages, the coordinated lies. I told her I was not interested in a war, but I was prepared for one. Savants again. "You recorded everything, didn't you?" "No. I documented everything." "There's a difference." She hung up. By that evening, mutual friends had started to piece things together. One of them, a guy we both know from the neighborhood, texted me privately. "Is it true about the trainer?" I replied with one word. "Yes." He sent back "I'm sorry." There was the first honest reaction I had received from anyone outside of a lawyer. The house felt different that night. Quieter. Not lonely. Just cleared out. Like after you remove something that was taking up more space than you realized. And around 10 p.m., Melissa sent one final message. "Jake thinks we should give each other space before making anything official." I stared at that for a long time. Even now, she was outsourcing decisions to him. I did not respond. Instead, I forwarded that message to my attorney and asked him to proceed with the next filing. Because at that point, there was no intrigue left. Only execution. The next week moved fast. Her attorney reached out 3 days later. Different tone entirely. No emotional language. Just logistics. They requested a temporary financial support arrangement and partial access to the house to retrieve additional belongings. My attorney handled it. We agreed on a scheduled pickup time with both attorneys copied. No surprises. No unannounced visits. Clean and documented. She showed up the following Saturday morning with her sister. I was there. Not to argue. Not to reconcile. Just to supervise the process. The house was still in both our names. Until a court decided otherwise, it was better to keep everything visible. She walked in and looked around like she was entering a museum of something that used to belong to her. We did not hug. We did not speak beyond practical instructions. Her sister did most of the talking. Sharp tone. Passive-aggressive comments about how this did not have to happen. I ignored them. Melissa packed clothes, shoes, personal items. She avoided the office entirely. That was my space. The place where I found the screenshots still saved in a folder labeled evidence. At one point she paused in the hallway. You really won't even consider counseling. I told her counseling is for people who are confused. Not for people running parallel relationships. She flinched again at that phrase. Before she left, she tried one last time. Jake and I are taking a break. He thinks it's too messy right now. There it was. Not remorse. Not clarity. Just inconvenience. I told her that was between her and him. It had nothing to do with the divorce. She asked if I ever loved her. That question is designed to destabilize. To pull you into nostalgia. I answered honestly. I love the version of you I thought I married. That was the only emotional sentence I gave her that day. She left with 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. No slammed doors. No dramatic exit. After they pulled out of the driveway, I walked through the house room by room. Closets half empty. Bathroom counters cleared of her makeup. The gym bag gone. The space felt lighter. Not happy. Just defined. 2 weeks later, I heard through a mutual friend that Jake had distanced himself. Apparently, he did not sign up to be the villain in someone else's divorce. He had clients to maintain. A brand to protect. That information did not give me satisfaction. It gave me confirmation. What they had thrived in secrecy. It struggled in daylight. Melissa texted again after that. I think we moved too fast. Not we. She said she was staying with a friend now. That things with Jake were complicated. That maybe we both needed time before finalizing anything permanent. I responded once. The paperwork is already permanent in motion. She replied with a single word. Please. I did not answer. Because by then, intrigue had been replaced with pattern. And patterns do not change because someone feels uncomfortable. The hearing for temporary orders happened a month after I found the second phone. We sat on opposite sides of a long table in a small conference room at the courthouse. No dramatic courtroom seat. Just attorneys, paperwork, and a mediator who looked tired of watching marriages dissolve for a living. Melissa looked different. Less confident. Less certain. Not broken. Just unsettled. Her attorney attempted a narrative about emotional distance. About how we had grown apart. About how she had felt unsupported and isolated. My attorney did not argue emotion. He submitted documentation. The screenshots of the second phone. The timestamps. The coordinated scheduling around my work calls. The message about the cover story photo. The mediator read silently for several minutes. Melissa would not look at me. When it was her turn to speak, she said she never meant to hurt anyone. That it started as a fitness mentorship that blurred lines. That she was confused. Confusion does not require 847 messages. The mediator recommended exclusive use of the home to me during proceedings. Equal asset division to be negotiated. No spousal support requested on either side given comparable incomes. Temporary financial boundaries already established. Clean. Outside the courthouse, she stopped me before I reached my car. You really documented everything. Yes. You never even yelled at me. There was almost disappointment in that. I told her yelling would not have changed the facts. She said Jake had stopped responding consistently. That things felt different now. That maybe she had made decisions too quickly. I asked her one question. If I had never found a phone, would you still be with him? She did not answer. That was answer enough. I got in my car and drove home to a house that felt fully mine for the first time in years. That night I did something small but symbolic. I removed the guest room bed frame and donated it. The room that had become a holding area for secrets was now empty. I turned it into an office extension. Clean desk. Neutral walls. No reminders. A few days later, mutual friends stopped asking questions. The narrative had settled. There was no scandal beyond what she had already created. Jake quietly removed most of his public photos with her. Brand management. Melissa sent one last message before the final filing date. I didn't think he was the point. I just didn't want to feel ordinary. I read that twice. Then I replied with the only sentence that mattered. Ordinary would have been honest. After that, there was nothing left to discuss. The final decree was signed just under 4 months after I found the second phone. No dramatic trial. No last-minute confessions. Just paperwork, signatures, and the official end of a marriage that had already been hollow for longer than I realized. We sold the house. Split the equity cleanly. I moved into a smaller place across town. Closer to work. Less square footage. Fewer rooms to echo. Melissa did not contest anything at the end. By the time the final documents were ready, whatever fire had fueled her choices had burned down to something quiet and inconvenient. I heard through the same mutual friend that she and Jake lasted another 6 weeks after the hearing. Apparently, the reality of being with someone who had just detonated their marriage was not as exciting as sneaking around a structured husband with a predictable schedule. Shocking. The last time I saw her in person was at the closing appointment for the house. Neutral territory, conference table, pens with fake flowers attached to the caps. She looked at me before we signed. I thought he would fight for me. I answered honestly. I did. I just didn't compete. There is a difference. She nodded like she understood, but I am not sure she did. When we finished signing, she hesitated like she wanted to say something else. Apologize maybe. Reframe the story one last time. Instead, she just said, "Take care of yourself." I told her the same. And that was it. No dramatic hug. No promise to stay friends. Just two adults walking in opposite directions because one of them chose a second life and the other refused to participate in it. A few months later, I ran into Jake at a grocery store. Completely by accident. He saw me first. I could tell because he stiffened before I even processed who he was. He nodded. I nodded back. No words exchanged. He did not look like a villain. He looked like a guy who underestimated the cost of someone else's chaos. As for me, I did not feel victorious. I did not feel crushed. I felt clear. Clear that 847 messages is not confusion. Clear that secrecy is infrastructure. Clear that standards are not pride. If there is anything I learned from this, it is simple. You do not scream when you find the second phone. You read all 847 messages. Then you call your lawyer. And you move.